All right, so you are a 3-time high school Letterman, 3-sport high school Letterman.
3 sports, yep.
Did you play on the volleyball team? Did they have like a
They
club?
had a club,
Okay.
but it wasn't like a true team.
You're a college basketball player,
Yep.
doctor, husband, father,
Allegedly.
3-time Man Games champion. What is your most proud accomplishment of those?
Is my wife listening?
No.
Being a husband and a father.
Nice.
For sure. But Man Games is a very close second.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, you're one of the OGs. You were at the very first Man Games, which
Yeah.
only 8 people can claim. So that's impressive.
That was a good time.
So most child stars have a tough time coming out of their acting careers.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about your Arctic Circle gig and how you were able to come out of that as a somewhat normal person.
It was really hard. You're right. Lots of stardom with my one-time Arctic Circle commercial.
You were the face of that commercial.
They paid me a lot of money, $50.
Nice.
Spent it all at one place.
Did you put it in a trust?
No. That was fun. Yeah. No, someone at church was kind of in charge of that whole thing and invited me to do it, and it was a one-time thing, and that was fun to. It would be cool to find that, and I have actually tried recently, and I can't find it on YouTube or anything. But
Yeah.
there's
There's got to be a way.
Circle.
Arctic Circle's headquartered in Utah. Maybe I'll stop in and ask if they have some footage.
They're like, yeah, it's our number one seller.
Well, you crossed up some kid in soccer, and then there's like end screen of you smiling through one of the circles.
Well, they coached him how to trip.
Oh,
it had
perfect.
nothing to do with me. Yeah.
Oh, man. How long was it? Was that like a long shoot? Do you remember? How old were you?
I do. It was like 3rd or 4th grade, maybe. And it was like a morning. It was like a 4-hour thing, maybe.
Nice.
Yeah. It was it was just off Creek Road. I can't remember what park, but it was right in that neighborhood there.
Yeah.
Kind of by where my sister lives now.
That's funny. It's interesting because my son Jared is playing baseball, and his home field is Glenmore, which is where if I remember right, you can correct me, but I think the first time it was like, hey, do you want to have a sleepover, was part of that all-star team at Glenmore where James Thompson fell over the fence on a catch and stuff. So it's kind of interesting to go back to that field and, I don't know, full circle of life type of a thing.
Yeah, I remember when we were having Kaya, the nurse said having kids is like living life all over again because the little things are exciting again. And I think that's exactly has been very true. And you're circling back with your kid and playing baseball at where we used to play. And yeah, it brings back a lot of good memories, I'm sure.
What role have sports played in your life?
A huge role. I think one of the biggest things is learning how to work as a team, where those skills learned in sports apply directly to, real life, and working as a team and developing plans and taking the strengths of each individual person to make, the sum or to make the final product greater than the sum of the parts. So that's probably been the biggest thing, but I also think sports, you deal with a fair amount of adversity and, being on the losing side of close games, or I feel like being on losing teams has been, was one of the things that I grew from the most in knowing how to overcome not doing well and still having fun with it. And those things have related directly to life, I think.
How has that been applicable? Because you're a doctor now, you're in your fellowship year, you're finally done, I guess you could say, with all of the educational side of things. Because it's this month or next
2
month?
months, yeah.
Okay. So how does that apply now to being an orthopedic surgeon?
For sure, in medicine, it is very much a team player game. And if you're not a team player, things don't go well, and you and the people around you are not happy. And medicine, especially in the U.S., is so complex that it takes everyone doing a good job and dedicated to their job to do a good job. So the teamwork thing has been a big part of it. and then again with the adversity and hardships, like medical school and residency and fellowship is no joke as far as the commitments and sacrifices you have to make. And I remember in sports, spending a lot of time, running or doing things on my own, or when we're conditioning, trying to push yourself to that next level. And that has applied certainly to medicine.
Is there a similar aspect? I mean, I kind of know the answer to this, but you look at your sports coaches and how they kind of mentor you and teach you things through sports. Is it a similar idea through medicine, and the coaches are more of like doctors who've already been through it? What kind of influences has been in your life from the medical standpoint?
Yeah, it's been exactly the same. I've had some great coaches in my life who were encouraging at times that I needed encouragement, and then challenged me at times that I needed challenged or to take things to the next step. And then very much applies to medicine, where I've had mentors who helped me get into medical school, and then medical school mentors that helped me get into the residency that I wanted to. And then now in fellowship, I'm working with some very experienced and smart people who I know I can reach out to at any time in my career and lean onto their experience. So it's been, it's very comparable when it comes to sports coaches and then mentors in medicine.
I think back to like the first time that I played a varsity basketball game, coming from sophomore or JV, and everything moved so fast, and it was just like so much quicker, couldn't breathe, all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. Do you ever feel, I mean, it's probably not the not breathing part, but from the medical standpoint of, you look back to your first year in medical school, was there this feeling of like, man, I know so much because I'm so much further than pre-med students? But then by the end of medical school, you look at the first years and you're like, man, they don't know anything. And then now, 6 years later, to look back at yourself graduating medical school, is there this just huge leap?
Yes. Every year is very different. And probably the biggest place that you see that is in residency, because residency in surgical specialties is 5 years. And so as a fifth-year resident, you work with first-year residents. And you look at them and you're like, you know nothing, kid. And you remember being in that position. But it's partly a confidence booster looking back and being like, I remember being there and that was hard, and here I am now and I made it. And so, there definitely is an exponential amount of growth every year in medicine, and it takes a long time, especially in surgery, but I think it's required for the the expertise you have to know to do a good job when you're operating on people, taking their lives under your hands.
It seems like medicine evolves quite a bit and fairly quickly in terms of techniques or technology. I mean, it's been a 10-year process for you from first year of medical school to now. Even in that 10 years, have you seen any major advancements in your specialty?
Yeah, in orthopedics, nothing major. I think robotics is becoming more and more popular in knee and hip replacement, and is really cool technology. There's some debate on if it really leads to better outcomes for patients, but I think it's something that's coming, and the amount of data that robotics can give us, I think will lead to really good things. So that's probably the biggest thing. There are other technologies like, I think in the next couple months, one of the doctors here is trying to use a new technology that has kind of a holographic lens that is in front of your eye, where you can see the patient's bony pelvis through their soft tissue. So it's kind of like an overlay of a hologram, which is kind of cool. But like I said, there's some good advancements and good technologies and good engineering of products that we're using. But orthopedics has been really good for the last few decades in improving people's lives.
What has been the hardest thing you've had to deal with on this medical route? Kind of like a warning to those who are thinking of going into this line of work. Like, what is the hardest thing they have to realize is coming?
The biggest thing is, in my opinion, is the sacrifice you have to take away from your family. I grew up in Utah, and most of my family's still there, and I've missed birthdays, family reunions, holidays. And then now with my own family, it's been a ton of hours at the hospital and missing a fair amount of, Kaya's early days. That's probably the biggest sacrifice in medicine, I think, is time away from family. But if I'm talking to anyone who's interested in medicine, I feel like I hear a lot about people saying, oh, don't go into medicine, it's so hard. But I have honestly loved it. I think medicine has changed and it's harder. There's like administration and legality to it, but we're still taking care of people, and that's an honor and a privilege in my opinion. And so I would never discourage anyone from going into medicine.
What about like technical skills wise? Are there certain things that are more difficult versus less difficult from orthopedics, knees, hips?
Yeah, in orthopedics, we are like carpenters of the human skeleton, essentially. And having some carpentering experience in high school as my summer job played hand in hand with orthopedics. When we're literally using saws and screws and mallets and everything. The hip and knee replacement takes a lot of thought. But the execution isn't too hard, especially going through it for 6 years. I think trauma surgery is one of the wild cards because fractures can be so variable and there can be so many little pieces that you need to put back together. And so I think orthopedic trauma surgeons, when it comes to like true skill and finesse and dexterity, that's probably one of the hardest components of orthopedic surgery, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the reason I asked that question is we've had a previous question of we have a pilot who you know, and so the question was, with the pilot's guidance, how likely is it that he could direct a non-pilot to land a commercial jet and not crash and kill everybody?
Right.
So the same question to you for like a knee replacement. I'm assuming a knee replacement is less complicated than a hip replacement, or is it the other way?
Neither. They both have their subtleties.
Okay, so we'll go knee replacement.
Okay.
Could you coach somebody who's never done one before to do a knee replacement? Again, let's say that time isn't an issue, right? But to do one to where the person would be able to walk again.
Yeah. No, not a chance.
Yeah.
Why?
What would be?
I think it's the soft tissue and knowing the anatomy. And it truly takes years to understand like where the meniscus translates to the MCL. And if you cut out the MCL, like it's not the end of the world, but you have to switch up your plan and do something totally different. And that takes years of a trained eye and knowing where one thing ends and one thing starts. That would totally change the outcome of what you're trying to do. And so there would be no chance that I could walk someone through it. I guess, are you in the room with them?
Yes, you're in the room with them. You're like standing over their shoulder.
Okay.
But you've lost all use of your arms.
I would say it's possible, but it would take a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, a long time.
Okay.
But I did listen to one of your discussions about the pilot thing, and I've always wondered that too. But so commercial liner was the question on that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you had a little like single engine propeller plane or something, that might be doable. Like you hear stories of people, someone has a heart attack in a small plane and somebody else lands it. But yeah, commercial liners, I don't know. What does John say about that?
He said that if all of the conditions were right, so it's not super windy, weight ratios are okay, mm-hmm. long runway, then probably. But what I learned from him is the hardest part about planes is steering once you've hit the ground. So once you've hit the ground, because it's all your feet, it's not like a steering wheel. And so he said even as like newer pilots, as you're going down the runway, takeoff and landing are so hard because your left and right is with your feet. So that's a skill. He's like, you could probably land it and then you're going to crash. So to actually land it and get it to go straight would be one of the harder parts of it.
Yeah, I probably couldn't do it. But
Speaking of, we did have a question from somebody, and I'm just going to read these verbatim. So all these questions are not mine. If you see me reading a question, it's not mine.
Okay.
Once, just once, have you ever been mistaken for John Sherwood?
No, not that I can. I want to say yes for somebody else's sake. No.
Because you two, for years, have been mistaken for brothers.
Yeah.
And you had an over-under at this last Man Games of
Yeah.
how many times people would ask you. Do you remember what the over-under was?
I don't. It was like 4 or 5, maybe.
Did you hit it? Were you over or under?
Can't remember.
But it was like on the first tee of the first event.
Yeah.
Wait, are you two brothers?
It's like minutes after we had the conversation. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Who is your favorite sister?
Marty, by far. Like.
And then who is your least favorite brother?
Marty, by far.
He wins both of those.
Yeah.
If you could move one thing from a person's face to another part of the body, where would you move it for the funniest, and another answer for the most impactful?
From the face to another part of the body.
Mm-hmm.
So impactful. I think if you took your eyeballs and put them on your hands, you could do some sneaky things that way. Peeking around
like
corners.
On
literally.
knuckles or on like the palm? Like where would you put those?
Well, you wouldn't want to get in the way of your hands
That would hurt.
using them.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe like on your wrist or something.
Okay. That's the most impactful?
Sure.
Okay, what's the funniest?
Yeah, like your nose on your butt. I don't know.
Ooh, that would be rough.
Weird question. Next.
Well, you talked a little bit about the family time and your daughter. So tell me a little bit how your life has changed now that you're a father, because it's been almost a year now.
Yeah.
How has your life changed? How has your perspective on life changed now that you have a little human being?
Yeah, it's crazy. I love it. I've loved every second of it. It's like people say it's one of the hardest things you do, but worth it, and it's been very true. And the other thing I remember people saying is you have no idea what's coming, and that was exactly true. So one of the biggest things I think about is how much more of and I know you've said this, how much more of an appreciation for my parents that I have after having a kid, because it is really no joke of the time commitment, and this little human is 100% reliant on you, which is scary, but thankfully I have an amazing wife who has really shouldered a lot of that. And so, yeah, I have like a newfound respect for not only my parents, but all parents out there, and I guess existence of the whole human species, because it is such a commitment. But it's been great, and yeah, like the nurse said, it's been like reliving life all over again, where just for the first steps are exciting, or putting her in a swing for the first time is something that she has a lot of fun with, and then so through her, it's a living that again.
Yeah,
That's been great.
you've had strong women, I think, in your life. Your mom, your sisters, your wife. How is it different having a little girl? Has that changed at all your view of women?
I remember being, I don't know, high school, college age, and being terrified of having a girl. Sorry, that's the dog. Because I don't know, it was just a whole different world. But having been around my parents and then now being with Kate, I had like no issues. People would ask, "Do you want a boy or a girl?" I was like, I mean, Kate is amazing. Her mom, my mom, and I knew she would have, a daughter would have great mentors, and parents or a mother and grandmothers who were going to be there to support her. So, yeah.
At the very beginning of life here, so she's almost 1.
Mm-hmm.
What hopes and dreams do you have for her and the world?
Well, we have talked about which Olympic sports we want her to play.
You narrowed it down to like 3 at a time.
Yeah, like we'll let her choose out of the 2 or 3 we pick for her.
Right. I mean, swimming's usually early, so she could do like swimming and archery or something.
Yeah, so we're going to steer her towards volleyball, Olympic volleyball.
Perfect.
Sand or indoor, up to her. Maybe Stanford. They have a pretty solid volleyball team. So, no, I mean, but it would be great if she loves sports. I look forward to watching her play sports. But I think what I want for her most in life is to find something that she's passionate about, to go through life pursuing something that she feels has purpose and makes the world a better place.
So of the coaches that you've talked about in your life, now you're kind of in a way a coach to not only your daughter, but then I think in the future through your career. So what are some elements of a good coach that you can apply to your family and your profession, really?
Man, there are so many facets of coaches that I've had and mentors over time. I think some of the greatest things a coach can do is like I said, push you when you need to be pushed. Like, you could have success to a certain level, but it takes someone sometimes to push you to the next level when they know that you have that capability. But then at the same time, when you're going through adversity and tough times, to bring you back up. So it's like knowing the situation and what position your player or your child is in mentally and emotionally, and being able to push them when they need it and also pick them up when they need it.
Who have been some of your who have been some of your favorite teammates throughout your progression here?
I mean, beating you all the time, probably.
Not beating, not teammates.
You were the best teammate because I beat you all the time.
Yeah, it was rigged.
No,
it's always been rigged.
It was always back and forth, and yeah, it was for sure rigged because of your dad.
Yes. But seriously, like from a teammate's perspective, right? Because you've played on a lot of teams at this point, not just basketball, but all of the sports, and then again through med school and men's leagues and everything else. So what are characteristics of some teammates that you've had? And this isn't me trying to get me as an answer, so don't answer as me. But other teammates that you've had, who have you looked up to for who they have been as a teammate?
There's this... there's something I learned. I can't remember if it was in medical school or in orthopedics, but there's this person or descriptor where you call someone a hammerhead. And it's someone who puts their head to the ground and just hammers away nonstop. And in residency in medical school, we have to deal with a lot of kind of BS, tedious things that don't make any sense. But those people who would put their head to the ground and just hammer away and persevere and fight through the silly things to succeed. And as part of that is, putting your head down as part of a team and doing your particular job to make the team's effort more effective and efficient in getting towards a common goal. And so those people in sports and in medicine is the people that are willing to grind and don't complain about it, at least not a lot. We all have our complaints, but those people who just had the certain amount of tenacity and perseverance that that they would be you step by step in getting a certain job done.
I'm looking for names.
Are you?
Legit names. Yeah.
Throughout everything?
Yeah. Pick like your starting 5. Sports-wise.
In sports.
In sports.
In basketball.
Sure.
Oh, I mean...
Excluding me.
Excluding you?
Yes.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you for sure would be...
Well, I'm saying excluding. This isn't me like trying to prop up my confidence. But guys that you've played with, because you've had a lot of teammates. Again, going back to junior jazz before you were with us, then you go with us and the Badgers, and then you go whatever middle school you went to, Midvale, and then you've played on so many teams, Hillcrest, your colleges, because you played at 3 different colleges.
Yeah.
So
I
you got a
don't
lot to
know
choose from.
if that's possible.
Well, that's what we're here for.
It would be a long list.
Pick a center. What was a great big man that you played with?
Well, centers are soft. I can't think of a single one that I would want to play with ever again. I was just kidding. No, I really have to pick 5 people. I can't.
You can have like a bench team too. You can go as long as you want.
No, let's see. So at the University of Alaska Anchorage, I played with a guy named Brandon Walker. He's from Hayward, California. He was a hammerhead, and he would run through walls. He was always shooting on his own. He would be in the 5 for sure. Rory Patterson, I played with him at Snow, and then he later played at BYU Hawaii. He was super athletic. Started his career as a kicker at Utah State, and then made a great switch to basketball. I think Steve Schicker is someone who would run through a wall to get a job done, and super athletic and strong. If we could just harness that energy into like be more productive. But yeah, he was great to play with. Ryan Brimley was an outstanding shooter and hit some amazing shots and scored a lot of points. Yeah, those are some of the top ones.
I get to play with Schicker every week at this point now.
Yeah.
And he still has, it sucks to guard him because he is so strong and he just never stops, and he'll get you that big rebound when you need it. He'll get you a steal.
Hit a shot, drive to the lane. Yeah. Good guy too.
Good guy. Okay. Now your least favorite team. No, just tell me everybody that you despised. Some of these you may have to pass on because we get some fun questions here. What is the most inappropriate joke you have said or wanted to say to a patient?
Inappropriate.
We don't want to put you in trouble, so don't answer.
To be honest, like the medical field in OR is extremely respectful to patients. And it usually evolves around us making fun of each other as OR staff and residents and nurses, and anesthesiologists take the brunt of jokes because what are they doing? Just playing Scrabble on their phone back there? Like, do something. Yeah. But when it comes to patient care, that usually never has been an issue, at least in my experience of being inappropriate about a patient. I
would assume it's this way because I haven't shadowed like orthopedic surgery stuff, but in the other ones, it was very isolated around what you were working on. So it's not like you saw the patient's face and their entire body. It was like right where the impact zone was where the focus was. So you couldn't be like, oh, this person is fat, skinny, whatever, because it was all just kind of.
Yeah, it's almost depersonalized.
Yeah.
In the OR, like it's like such a controlled environment, and like you said, you prep and drape out the one specific thing you're working on, and so like a hip replacement, you work through a window that's draped out that's like 12 inches by 12 inches, and you don't see anything else. And same with the knee. And so it's almost like, in a good way, depersonalized, where you cut out the emotion and you do your job to get there. Yeah.
Super cool. Big spoon or little spoon?
Can you be the medium one in the middle?
Hold on. You and Kate are into some weird stuff. How many jelly beans do you think you could fit in your mouth? And do you think you could fit more than Eric?
362.
All right.
And no, because Eric's head is massive.
My jaw just unlocks. Have you ever seen women's netball?
Yeah.
Do your best to explain the rules.
Netball? I think that's a pretty popular Polynesian thing.
Is it the one in Australia too?
Yeah.
Like Joe Ingles' wife played netball.
So it's kind of like basketball on grass. You do not dribble. There are hoops on either end, like a basketball hoop, that do not have backboards. There's no dribbling, so it's like passing only, kind of like ultimate frisbee. And then, you're trying to get the ball into the basket. That's about all I know because I haven't watched it that closely.
I've seen one where, like, you can't block the shot. So once you're inside of a circle or something, you can only put your hands up, but you can't, like, actively try to steal the ball and block it. So I don't know the rules.
Yeah, me
neither. Some of these are so goofy, man.
Shoot away.
How much money would it take for you to get your nose pierced?
Ooh. I mean, I could pierce it and not put anything in there, right?
Just my guess. But let's push
Has
this
to
a little
stay.
further. It has to stay. You wear this nose piercing every day
Forever?
for the rest of your life. Yes.
I wouldn't do it.
No amount of money.
No.
$1 trillion.
Oh, I mean, who needs $1 trillion? I don't know.
$50.
You're right. I'd do it for 50, not $1 trillion.
Would you rather talk like Yoda or breathe like Vader?
Oh, breathe like Vader.
Yeah.
That'd be badass.
Yeah, I agree. This one's a little bit more normal. What are you listening to in the car alone? Is it a podcast, music, silence?
I, after living in Hawaii, picked up Hawaiian reggae. I mean, growing up in the Polynesian community and family, listened to a fair amount of reggae. But after going there and listening to some of the, Californian and Hawaiian Polynesian reggae bands, I listened to Hawaiian reggae and pop. It's kind of like a pop Hawaiian reggae mix, but Common Kings has been probably my favorite band since Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And Kate and I went to their concert in Kansas City several years ago, and that was an awesome experience. We were able to meet them and get a picture with them. So I'll listen to like Common Kings Radio on Spotify, or there's Island 98.5 is one of the local Hawaiian stations that I'll listen to sometimes.
Take me through that. What was it like living in Hawaii? More specifically, we had a little bit of a conversation around this. Most people get the chance to visit Hawaii as a tourist.
Mm-hmm.
How is that different than living there?
I don't know. I loved it. I could live there. I know a lot of people could not, because it is very far away and isolated. And like I said, it's hard to get to your family if they're in Utah. Like, it's a long flight and expensive, especially with family and if you have kids. But no, living there was great. I never got sick of going to the beach and the weather and the community, was predominantly Polynesian and like Asian. And so there was this really interesting diversity where like white people was the minority, and whereas in the mainland and in Utah, it's Tongans are the minority. So almost felt a sense of community in Hawaii, being a part of like this broad spectrum of Polynesian and Asian communities. So that was kind of cool to feel like I sort of fit in, even though we were all different. We were all from the same kind of Polynesian and Asian backgrounds.
You spent most of your time on Oahu?
Yeah.
But it seems like you got to visit all of the islands.
Yeah. I did some rotations on the Big Island.
Mm-hmm.
Kona Community Hospital, which was awesome. Orthopedics, general surgery, and OBGYN. Mm-hmm. And then in the years living there, we were able to visit Maui, Kauai, and I took a weekend trip on my own to Molokai, which is really cool. So the only one that I haven't been to that you can go to is Lanai. So we'll do that sometime.
It seems like they all kind of have their own character to them,
Yeah.
in a way. So which island do you gravitate to the most?
I like Oahu the best because there's the most to do there, and it's small enough to where you could get to any part of the island within a reasonable amount of time, depending on traffic. Also for surfing, that's really good because different swells are seasonal. So you could like drive to the North Shore in the winter or South Shore in the summer to like catch good waves, whereas like a Big Island, that's impossible. Maui doesn't have this much as far as surfing because of the surrounding islands, except for Jaws on the north side, which is way above my pay grade. But I would pick Oahu just because there's the most to do, restaurants, people. And then the thing is, when you live there, like, it's so easy to island hop on a plane, so you don't have to live in Maui. Like, you can just go visit Maui or visit Big Island and do a weekend trip.
Are they pretty short flights? What is
Yeah,
like a flight? Yeah.
like 30 minutes to maybe an hour at the most between the furthest islands.
Yeah. What is the worst superpower you can think of?
The worst superpower? I think they're all pretty cool.
There's a show on Hulu called Extraordinary.
Mm.
Premise of it is that everybody has a superpower, but there are some pretty weird ones. Like a guy breathes helium, so he works in a party shop and he blows balloons because that's his power.
Nice.
Kind of useless, but
Yeah.
other than balloons.
Yeah, I'd have to go with that one.
Perfect. If you wrote your own eulogy, what would you want it to say?
Hurry and bury him as fast as you can. Good riddance.
Okay. No hope there.
No, I think something about like,
How do you want to be remembered?
yeah, I hope that I went through life. Everyone makes mistakes, but hopefully being a positive influence on people's lives and made a difference or helped someone through something, if not their entire life, or yeah, someone who people enjoyed being around, had a good time.
Well, you have this, and I don't know the appropriate word for it, charisma, likability. It seems like every time somebody meets you, they immediately feel like they want to be your friend. And so knowing you as long as I have, it's just always been a part of who you are. But there are people that actually try to proactively develop those types of skills. Do you think about that at all, of like likability stuff, or you just live in your life, that's just who you are?
Well, I must just be really good at hiding what I'm really thinking about people now. I'm just kidding. No, I don't know. I don't know if it's just who I was raised by, or my family, or good friends who've been around me, but I feel like I do tend to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I've had trials and tribulations in my life and also seen hard times in other people's lives, so I try to take the perspective of that everyone has been through something and you have no idea what that is or how hard it was. And so I try to give the people the benefit of the doubt of like where they're coming from, and if when I'm meeting someone, they're clean slate, and to try to ask them genuine questions. I'm not a great conversationalist. Some people are really good about asking people and connecting well, but I feel like I try to just at least get along with people because, and maybe this comes from my mom's dad, he's like, life is too short to get too worked up about certain things. And so maybe that's just something I've carried with me, to just try to be nice to people in general. Yeah.
That's what's so weird too, is because there are the types of people that are overly gregarious. They can talk about anything with anybody, walk into a room of strangers, and then immediately they're the center of the party. And I don't think that that's you. And Brandon brought up something too during Man Games. He was like, it was just so weird how we're in between spike ball games, just sitting on a bench, and Donnie and I aren't saying anything, but there's this like sense of calm or peace or whatever it is, which is, you can talk or not talk for hours.
Yeah, I remember that with Brandon. I mean, that's been such a cool thing about Man Games, is making these connections with people who, some of whom I knew before, played against them in sports, but never connected with them, and other people who I'd never met before, like Brandon and others, who, living away from Utah for so long, I don't connect with these people on a routine basis, like John or Brandon and others, but people who I've made such close connections with in a short amount of time, and maybe it's because of how they are too, where I know I could call any number of these people up and be like, hey, I need something, and they'd be there like instantly, and vice versa I would do for them. So yeah, that's been a really cool thing about Man Games.
What gets you to Man Games? Because you, for most of the life of Man Games, have held the title of the longest distance traveled to go to Man Games, recently stolen from you by Nate Snar by a couple hundred miles. But why make that trip every year?
The people. Yeah, the people. I mean, it's these, a lot of them are people that I like went through high school and middle school, and with you all the way back to elementary, through these developing years of life where you made these like special connections and bonds, and reconnecting with those people is well worth, a weekend trip and a flight from wherever we've been, whether that was Kansas City or this year Minneapolis. And then the sports side of it is just like it brings us there, but the true meaning is reconnecting with people from before and then making new connections with new people.
Do you feel like you're more positive about it because you win every time, or would it still be as fun if you weren't?
Yeah, if we lose the next one, I'll probably never come back again. Yeah,
it's a lot of pressure to win this next event. You've got to live, we mentioned Hawaii, but you've also got to live in Kansas City, which I think is a really cool and unique town. We got to visit you there, and then now Minneapolis. But big, heavy sports towns, especially with the Chiefs and everything else. So you did convey one memory about a Chiefs game. Maybe you can share it with the people here of the Chiefs game you were able to go to. Was that the only Chiefs game you've been to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So growing up in Utah, we don't have a whole lot of professional teams, or at least not the full gamut. There's the Jazz and then Real Salt Lake. So by default, I'm a Jazz fan, but it's been sad from the beginning. Ever since Michael Jordan broke my heart as a 10-year-old in 97 and 98, back-to-back. I know you're a big Jordan fan. Mm-hmm. Ton of respect for the guy, but it was just terrible timing for the Jazz to be the best team that they were at the time when the greatest basketball player of all time was playing too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've sort of followed the Jazz, but then having moved to different places, Kansas City was the first city I lived in that had an NFL team. It just so happened that they won a Super Bowl like once or twice while we were there. But yeah, so I've become an adopted Chiefs fan for sure, and I have a lot of respect for Patrick Mahomes. I think he's a good guy, does a good job. Fun to watch, obviously. But the one game I went to was a couple years ago. It was the year they did not win the championship, but they played the Buffalo Bills in, I think, the divisional round. And it was a Sunday night game. I had to work Monday. Very dedicated to orthopedics.
It's the sacrifice you talked about.
It's another sacrifice. Not far behind missing your family is, yeah. So this is a game where the Chiefs were up by about a touchdown with 5 minutes to go, and Kate was pregnant at the time with Kea, and so she didn't come to the game with. She was just home, and I said, hey, would you mind coming and picking me up, because getting out of those kinds of stadiums takes forever. And I wanted to get home at a reasonable time to go to bed to get ready for work the next day. And so 5 minutes to go in the game or so, Chiefs are up. I'm like, they should be fine. So I leave, and over the ensuing 45 minutes, the Bills, I think, take the lead, and then the Chiefs score again, and then the Bills score again or something, and then this is the game where Patrick Mahomes, with 13 seconds left or whatever, takes the Chiefs from their own 10 to within field goal range on 2 passes, and it's where the coach, Andy Reid, says,
don't this up.
Don't screw this up. But he's like, when times get tough, oh man, I'll have to look it up. You'll have to look it up. It's a great one. Anyway, so Harrison Butker kicks it, sends it to overtime, and then the ensuing overtime is incredible. And I miss all of those moments because I left the game early.
And your wife said that has been told or said is one of the greatest NFL games of all time.
Of all time, ever. Oh, it's when times get grim, be the Grim Reaper or something like that.
Cool.
It was something really cool. Andy Reid's awesome too. I like him.
Cool. Yeah. That sounds exciting. I have never been to an NFL game, but here in Minneapolis, I got to tour the U.S. Bank Stadium where the Vikings play. And now Minneapolis has its own flavor from a sports perspective because they have every major.
Yeah.
Football, baseball, basketball, hockey.
Mm-hmm.
So what has it been like living in Minneapolis? Well, not Minneapolis, but Minneapolis-St. Paul area.
It's been great. There's this saying called Minnesota nice, where the people are just nice. And it's been pretty much true for the most part. So that's been great that the people have been very welcoming. We've become very close friends with our neighbors, Jared and Nicole. People at work have been fun to work with. We haven't been able to explore as much as we would have liked because we moved here when Kaya was 4 weeks old. And then we didn't come here with like a social network or family to like, hey, would you mind babysitting? And we're going to go do some things. So we've been limited to things that we could do with her, but we've been able to explore a little town called Stillwater, which has really good restaurants and a nice riverfront on the St. Croix River. We've been to Hudson, Wisconsin, which has been fun. North shore of Lake Superior, I hear, is really pretty. We tried to go last fall to see, the changing leaves and everything, but everything was so expensive there. We ended up going to North Wisconsin, which is on the south side of the lake, and that was really pretty. Stayed in an Airbnb. So, yeah, Minnesota's been great. The people are very avid about getting outside despite whatever temperature it is, and so it's been a lot of fun. But knowing we were only going to be here for a year, it was hard to like make a lot of connections and explore as much as we did in Kansas City, where we were for 5 years.
Yeah. Is it hard to make those connections? Because even through med school and residency, I'm only going to be here for a certain amount of time. Or is it still pretty easy to open up? And now that we're all connected anyway, it's okay to make close friends far away.
This year has been harder than others just because of the timeline. It's 1 year, like one and done. But whereas in Kansas City it was 5 years, we had built-in friends from residency. Here in fellowship, you're inserted into the orthopedic service where there's residents and staff that have been there for years and PAs and nurse practitioners, and they know the system, and then you show up for a year, operate with these people, and then you're out. So it's a little harder to make close connections for sure in that time frame.
So what's next?
I took a job with a private group in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Had a buddy from residency who did a fellowship in spine, and he works with this group. He's originally from Alamosa, and I had been in talks with him for 6 to 12 months, about what his experience was in finding a job in Colorado, because that's where we wanted to end up with Kate's family being there. And we like the Mountain West. And Colorado is a hard market to break into because a lot of people want to end up there, including physicians. And so we were looking elsewhere, and then at the last second, he said, hey, 2 of our joint replacement surgeons are leaving. We need someone ASAP, and it just worked out. So that's next there.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's closer to Man Games, which is really the only reason I care. So,
well, there's a direct flight from Colorado Springs to Salt Lake City on
Perfect.
Delta.
Well, we could do a Colorado Man Games too. Just
be awesome.
Bring it to you.
Yeah.
Very cool. So I have 3 more questions one of these questions is how many of these have you listened to? I haven't asked that one yet. How many podcast episodes have you listened to?
It's usually in bits and pieces, but probably like 3 or 4.
Nice. More than most.
Is it?
I don't know.
Yeah. I every once in a while will read I get an email about something you write on WordPress.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I read one just the other day.
Oh, nice. Fun.
Yeah. Confidence booster for you.
Do you have like a username? Because I never...
So
you've subscribed to the WordPress blog?
I think so.
Okay.
Because it came to me in an email, and I read it through
Yeah.
the email. I didn't actually go to the website.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Sweet. Got 1 subscriber. I'm super pumped.
Most of the time, I just delete it.
Yeah.
But I was super bored.
Spam.
Between surgery, and I was like, okay, I'll read this one.
Fell asleep, and then they had to push you awake. So who has not been to Man Games that you know that should be at the next one? Who do you think would enjoy Man Games of their many teammates?
In Utah?
Anywhere. Let's go Utah, though, just to keep it easier for them.
What's that?
Let's keep it in Utah just to keep it easier.
Who hasn't been there that needs to be there? Whoa.
Who would be a formidable opponent at something like this?
Let's see. Man, a lot of the people that I would think about have been there. But I mean, especially in the basketball world and 3-point shooting contests, like Ryan Brimley, he's never participated.
Correct. Yeah.
He would be a formidable foe in the basketball world for sure.
And golf.
And golf, yeah, for sure. I mentioned Rory Patterson. I haven't talked to him in years. I mean, since Snow College. But he was just like a super stud athlete all around. Like I said, he was the kicker for Utah State, but I think he was athletic in football. But in basketball, I think all around he would be a good guy too.
Nice.
But yeah, I'd have to go way back, and I could think of some of the guys we played baseball with who were probably super athletic, like, Jake Fisher and Naman Zitting and those guys. That was an athletic, talented group of kids too.
Well, James Thompson is an athlete too. He's just
James could fall over the fence again. They called that a home run. He caught the ball, then fell over. Wasn't it like an orange?
Yeah, it was like
makeshift?
one of those orange construction fences.
Yeah, gave him the home run.
I mean, I think technically they were correct, but still lame.
No.
Or is it not? Like if you bust through a wall at a stadium and you come back with the ball.
Anyway.
I don't know. Well, that's rules officials. Who has been at Man Games that you would like to hear more about on this podcast? Who would get you to click and watch one of these episodes?
Anybody. How about let's go with Schicker.
Okay.
I'd be curious to pick his brain.
Yeah.
He'd have some funny things to say.
Yes. I love Schicker. We got to get him back there. He was at the first two.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to get him back there.
Yeah.
All right, the last major one is, what does it mean to you to be a man?
That seems like an interesting question in this day and age.
It's not meant like the political, controversial side.
Like XY, duh. Which is a whole different can of worms.
Yeah.
Which I think there's some silly conversations out there being had. I think that there's a lot placed on what does it mean to be a man, or what does it mean to be a woman. I think maybe the question is, what does it mean to be a good human? And I think it's like I've talked about, is just giving people the benefit of the doubt and always being like, hey, judge lest ye be judged, you know what I mean? And go through life trying to, in general, just try to make the world a better place. Like, I can't stand people who are constantly trying to cause controversy and drama. Those are the people that I have a hard time having that patience with. So yeah, I think if being a man just means be a good person in general.
Nice. It's been so interesting to track the trajectory is the wrong word, but it's the one that's coming to my mind of your life, like to just the history in the past and to see where we started and where we are. And I have like a 9-year head start on a kid's perspective than you do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just been so fun to spend this last weekend and to see you as like a dad, because that's something that I haven't seen you as before. And it's what's hit me really hard recently and is, especially with my kids, and you'll find this, is that from 0 to, and especially when they can start expressing themselves and talking, your kids are going to want to spend every minute with you. So it's going to be like, Dad, let's go play. And all the way up until about 8, 9-ish, it's this, Dad, like, they want nothing more than to spend time with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then now that we have our 10-year-old, she still loves to spend time with us, but we're seeing that transition into like, I want to go play with friends. Like, we're still cool, but we aren't as cool. And I'd rather go play somewhere else. So the one regret that I have is that we work so hard in our 20s, 30s to get to a place in life where we can provide and to give them everything we can, and we're busy and we come home and we're tired. But love every minute of it, dude, because spend as much time as you can, even when you're tired, even when it sucks and all you want to do is take a nap, because you only get that 0 to 10 for 10-ish years, if the math is correct.
10 minus 0.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So it's so cool. And just feel very fortunate to know you, to be your friend, and see your family. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming. I mean, you've taken time away from your family and your extreme fear of airplanes.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of fears.
One of many. To come to Kansas City and Minneapolis, we live outside of St. Paul, but to the Twin Cities, it means a lot to see you guys and, develop that relationship with Caitlin and lean on your guys' parenthood expertise.
Not to do.
And, those forewarnings about, what comes as a 10-year-old. But I think I was lucky to have parents that kind of let me live my life. And there was this natural progression of where in those independent years, my parents let me be independent. And so when I went to college, I was like, I had to take care of myself. And I'm like, dang it, my parents were awesome. So I hope that I can relay that to, Kate, to Kea, where we let her have her independence, but comes back around and appreciates us when she goes to college. And if she has kids in the future, appreciates us like, you and I have with the appreciation we have with our parents after us having kids. So, yeah, no, it's been awesome, and I'm thankful for you and Caitlin. Thanks for coming. It's been awesome. And for putting on Man Games. Everyone give another round of applause for Eric to be putting together Man Games and Girl Games, which has been a great way to reconnect and make new connections with people.
Well, again, the original one was just to show you that I was the better athlete. So we'll just end it with those words.
Yeah. We've gone over this. Net games, you got it. So crush me at, ping pong that first year and netball. And so certain things I just can't hang with. But
that's why I don't do the sports you're good at. I just avoid those.
Smart.
Yeah.